What's up, everybody? I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and welcome to another episode of The Right Mindset Podcast. Today, I am bringing you two, not one, but two guests that I can call friends. This is a second time for Jody and a first time for Dawn. Let's bring them to the front door. Dawn, Jody, how's it going today?
Howdy.
Hello.
Oh, excellent. Oh, I like that. A nice little hello, howdy. I'm unsure as well. Trust me. We're going to get into the groove of this. We'll make things happen. But before we get started, for the audience, Dawn, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Hello. First, thank you for having me. This is very exciting. My name is Dawn Aurora Hunt. I am the owner and CEO of Cucina Aurora Kitchen Witchery. I've written 3 books on kitchen witchery. They're mostly cookbooks. They are first one I wrote about 10 years ago, and then the last 2 have come to fruition in the last 2 years or so. And I'm loving it. I really love writing, and I love being able to share my ideas in print. And my greatest gift is when someone says, "Oh, I used one of your recipes," or "Oh, something you said in your book really meant something to me." So that's been really great. And I can't wait to sit here and talk with you about writing and process and all that jazz.
Excellent. That's wonderful. What's fruition mean? All right. Anyway, Jody, tell us a little bit about yourself. Bring us to fruition.
Yeah, I was going to say fruition's probably something that you use in the kitchen, but I'm not sure. Anyways, I'm a novelist and podcast host. I have a podcast called TRBM. It is not video in any way because I find video really intimidating. But novels, that's what I'm here to do. And I left the W-2 world to write as many novels as I could and hopefully sell them. And I had recently had somebody tell me that was the most selfish thing that I could do. So I've been carrying around some baggage lately. I also got my first 1-star review today on Amazon. You can go read it. It's brutal.
All right, let me bring that up. No,
yeah, exactly. No, it's amazing. I wanted to save that for the official moment when we got going because I'm still processing. Whoa, it's like a train just wham.
Well, I felt like if I wanted to stir Jody up, how can I do that? And
yeah,
a 1-star review.
They say that that's how you know when you're really getting successful is when you get haters. Like if somebody who really doesn't know what the hell they're talking about has something negative to say about you, right? Like if you get one bad review, that means that's, people are paying attention to you,
some stranger bought your book and
right.
and in that sense, you're like, awesome. A stranger bought my book. I guess I should be happy.
Yes.
Yeah, unless you're a first-time writer, then it's that stranger is your parents,
yeah,
your
exactly.
friends, maybe some siblings, a cousin that just wants to be recognized as someone who helped your career.
Still,
exactly.
You impassioned them enough to write our bad review.
Oh yeah, especially because they don't want to feel awkward at a gathering of family.
Right. I'm just saying, it's kind of cool, I don't read reviews of my books. Like I try not to.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm way, way too insecure to begin with.
Yeah.
But I've gotten hate mail before, and I've had people say nasty things on, like my YouTube channel. Like I was doing like a cooking tutorial, and a couple of people said mean things about my hair. They were like, "Girl, your hair is gross. You shouldn't be cooking with long hair. You should chop off your hair." And I was like, geez. "Oh my God, my food is still good. Like, I don't know what's wrong with you." Like, but they hated me. And I was like, "Well, it sucks to be you then." Like, I don't know.
It makes sense. Didn't they know you're Sicilian and like shoulder hair is normal on girls?
I'm just saying, if your food doesn't have hair in it, it wasn't made with love. I'm just.
Yeah, it's protein.
Yeah, hair is delicious. It's like rhino horn, but because that's what rhino horn's made out, is hair follicles. Come on.
I thought you were saying hair was an aphrodisiac.
No. It's just, I know these stupid things, so I can put them in books and then be like, "That's stupid," and I take it out. I've only had one bad review. It was a 4.5-star review, a 4-star review on Amazon. Wow. And the review itself was beautiful, but he gave me 4 stars. So I messaged him and I was like, I have like over 30 plus 5 stars. And you're the first one to give me a 4 with a raving review. Like your review is like, right. And he goes, "Well, I saw all the 5s. And I felt like a 4 would help kind of even things out." And I was like, what?
What?
Yeah.
He gave me a 4 because it was too many 5s, he said. And I was like, "I'll take it."
Yeah.
That's not cool. That's not cool. I had my last book that came out, I had like 2 1-star reviews on Amazon, but no comments, just a star. And then I had, like you said, like I had all these 5-star reviews. And I'm like, first of all, who the hell gave me, there's no comment. There's like no, it's like a weird, it's just an email. And I'm like, well, who did that? And it was when we were in pre-sales. So I'm like, who could have even do
So
that
they
in the
couldn't even
first
read
place?
it.
No one's even read it. So it's like, is it a bot? I don't like, does that happen? I don't know.
Mm.
And that's when I was like, you know what? Forget it. I don't care. I put the love in. If somebody doesn't like it, that's on them.
You know what's funny about that? See, I was like, how do I rile up Dawn?
Yeah, so I didn't even write anything. I just clicked 1 star and I said, see how that sits.
Yeah, it worked. It took a couple months for it to pay off.
Thank you.
I like to think ahead. I don't want to be like everyone else. I want to, I'm not Howard Stern. I'm me. Listen, before we get into it, I'm gonna throw a question out to the panel, and then maybe you could talk about it a little bit, okay? But I'm gonna give you both a choice. All right, it's gonna be one question for both of you. But do you want it to be straightforward, like a writing question? Do you want it to be a little bit like a hot topic, or do you want it to be a little bit more business savvy?
Blindside, just hit me.
You just want me to hit. Oh.
You're the host. We're
All
here
right.
for it.
So transgender. Okay.
All right. You said we weren't going to talk about that right now.
No, that's fine. I have a whole other show on that. I got really great response. Okay. All right, here we go. This is interesting because one of you is traditionally published and the other is Jody. So let's answer this question. I'm going to ask Jody first, and then John, you'll get the same question. So, do you believe that the rise of self-publishing has led to an oversaturation of the book market? And if so, what impact do you think this has had on the industry as a whole? Go ahead, Jody.
Well, I don't have to answer the second part if I say if not, but no, I don't. I think that self-publishing is really easy from the perspective that you can upload your files to Amazon and you can publish them. And some people might buy them. And so there might be 2 million books on Amazon right now, or 2 million authors. And if you sell a copy every week, you're going to be in the top 250,000 or so. So that would suggest that the bottom 1.75 million are really not well written. And so I consider that to be noise. And I guess I mean that to some sense.
You're right.
Yeah. So there's a much more complex answer than that. But I'm going to say, in my opinion, there are probably 250,000 well-written books on Amazon right now that are self-published and that deserve to be read and enjoyed and have an audience. And they've been lovingly edited and rewritten. And so I think from that perspective, saturation is just noise. Figuring out how to find your readers is really hard work. And if you're traditionally published, it's more difficult in that sense because you don't get the royalties to be able to market as aggressively as I can. I get 97% of every book sale I have off of my bookshop, and that allows me to sell fewer copies and spend more money on ads, as well as editing and things like that. So,
well, to kind of add on to what you were saying, about the noise, it's like, how could it really affect the industry? Is think of this as, if I could use the analogy of, imagine the NBA. Open its door to anyone that wanted to play basketball, but didn't necessarily have to have a level of skill. But then there was also the people that trained their entire life to play. But now they have to let everybody kind of play. They have to, hey, LeBron, you got to sit down. We need Jody to come in and play. The amount of time spent with the quality material is going to be diminished. I'm not saying this as this is what I believe. I'm just trying to give a devil's advocate to the position. Is the noise is saturating the potential for the hits to be seen more, because there's just there's something going on with BookTube. If you watch BookTube, there are a lot of people who review books that have just decided not to review BookTube books or like TikTok authors, and because they're just, as per their words, terrible. because again, they don't go through there's no quality control. It's just like, hey, I finished my book and I edited it. And my mother said it was a great read. So I'm going to publish it with the cover I made with, on Photoshop for the first time. But because I did it, it's awesome because I have no bias to how great I am. Right. And then imagine it's thousands and thousands upon thousands of books like that. So I think that's what the question is really suggesting, based on your noise comment. That I'm kind of throwing that back at you. Does that alter your thought?
No, it doesn't. I mean, I don't think it alters my thought, because I think that your analogy with the NBA is not necessarily on point with what's actually happening. The NBA is wide open for anybody to go in, but if they're not talented enough, they won't make the team. There is no gatekeeper in the NBA right now saying you can't play. Whereas in publishing, there is. And I can't speak for every single author out there, but I had a literary agent for 3 years and I got an offer to publish traditionally, but they wanted to publish my book in 25. And I was tired of waiting. And so I went my own route. And I think there are a lot of people like Michael J. Sullivan, who has published traditionally and realized he couldn't make a living doing it. And so he pulled back. He kept all the same editors, all the same proofreaders, all the same artists, and he did it all himself. He paid up front and he produces all of that out of pocket and then sells it through his network. There's Brandon Sanderson is doing the same thing. He's got 4 books coming out right now that he's self-publishing because he's kind of tired of the noose that is traditional publishing. So I would say that great authors rise to the top because they find ways to bring in people on their team who can do the things they can't, like marketing, like editing, like proofreading. And if you want to just go and throw a dart at the universe and then pick up whatever it hits and start reading it, then yes, maybe possibly all of those books are a problem.
Yeah. All right. I see what you're saying. I would disagree that there is definitely gatekeepers in the NBA, because there's somebody that says, I will sign you.
Right, exactly.
And
I'm talking about a different kind of a gatekeeper.
Well,
you cannot be kept out of the NBA, with the exception, and this is the NFL, but with the exception of Tim Tebow, you can't be kept out of the NBA or the NFL for your personal views. Like if you are great, you will find your way. And I don't think
certain personal views will get you kicked out of the NBA and fined. So there are gatekeepers. But Dawn, to throw it to you, you can answer on what he said, or you can give your own answer on the question.
I got a lot of thoughts about this. My very first book was self-published. And it was because people were asking me for my recipes, and I was already talking and giving workshops on things like kitchen witchcraft, which is basically the idea of putting intention into the foods that you're cooking. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to put together this collection of like my favorite recipes and basic principles. And I self-published it. This is maybe 15 years ago. So, but for me, it was a tool to be able to get my work out there. And I want to say that if you have the fortitude to self-publish, and you like Jody, I don't want to fucking wait for somebody to, pick me up because I know my work is good, or I don't want the deal you're offering me because I believe in myself and I know I can make more. I think self-publishing gives people that platform to be able to create art and share their knowledge in a way that they wouldn't normally be able to do. So I think that if you have the fortitude and the drive to not only write, but then also get into the self-publishing, even though it's easy, and I'm using, air quotes for easy, because what's easy for someone is not easy for someone else. And that process of becoming, your own self-publishing could be very daunting for someone, especially creative people, right? Creatives oftentimes have hard times with logistically complicated things, or the anxiety. I know I get anxiety around, administrative kind of things and processes. I just want to create, and getting into that stuff is a little bit, too much unless I break it down into small pieces. So I think if you have the fortitude to write, create, then publish, and then do all the work around that, why shouldn't you have that opportunity? And no, I don't think it's noise. I think if that book isn't good, it's not gonna sell to anybody but your family.
Mhm.
But you should still have the platform to be able to create it on whatever scale you want to. Right? Like you could be a crappy painter, but it doesn't mean you don't have the right to, buy a canvas and try to sell your work. Right? So I don't think that it's creating too much noise or muddying the waters for other people, because I think there is enough room for everyone's work and everyone's art, whether it's, books or music or, artwork in general. I think any way that you can get your work out into the world is the way that you should take. That versus traditional publishing, it's so different. And my own experience is definitely that traditional publishing wasn't what I expected it to be, but I prefer it to self-publication, because I'm not just a writer. I run a company. I have a podcast. I do television. I do a lot of other things. So for me to be able to just write and then loop that marketing into my regular business marketing, is really good for me, because I'm after distribution, not royalties. So my outlook on writing and that creative process is different than someone who's trying to make a living as a writer.
Yeah, it's almost as if the book is in itself a marketing tool for the bigger picture, which is the company brand. Not necessarily, hey, I'm doing the writer, I'm doing this is what I do, and this is just an element of my my system.
Yeah, kind of like, if you look at Rachel Ray, she's a personality. She's not a great personality. Rachel Ray, if you're listening, don't write me, unless you want to have me on your show.
Rachel Ray, come
on. No, but like if you look at Rachel Ray, right? She's got a show, she's got a cookbook, she's got a line of pots and pans. Now she's making dog food. Like, all of these things are her brand. They are all part of her, and you could separate any of these things out, and they could stand on their own, or you can put them all together, and that is basically kind of what I am doing. So the writing is crazy because it's something I've always kind of done on my own for myself, like I said, for other people, and then all of a sudden now it's part of that as well. But it's a completely different scenario versus publishing for your self-publication and then traditional publication, for sure.
I had a guest on my podcast not long ago named Libby Harker. I found her through Twitter, and she said something right in the middle of our interview that changed kind of everything I had thought about writing, publishing, marketing. She's traditionally published. She has 3 pseudonyms because she writes so many books that they can't handle her on the market by herself. So they broke her up, and she has a series of books that she writes on ancient Egypt, a series of books she writes on.
She's traditionally published, right?
Yeah, the Wild West.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
she's published.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. They don't want her to compete against herself. So she's got her channels and different names. But what she said to me is, she says, similar to what you were saying, Don, she loves writing, but she doesn't want to have to do the marketing. So she gets up in the morning, she writes for 5 hours. Her day is done. She takes a book, she goes, sits out on the beach, smokes pot, and reads. And I was like, that sounds like a pretty damn good life.
Sounds like heaven.
Yeah, but doesn't the ceramic of the pot like bother her lungs? So
yeah, right.
I have a couple of things. We threw a lot of. I want to back up a little bit. So one is Dawn. You said something about Rachel Ray. You split up. You said she made human food and dog food. I would have assumed it was all dog food. The second thing is, you brought up marketing. Well, not marketing, but you did. But I'll explain. You said if the book isn't good, it won't sell. And I disagree with that. And I'll bring up an analogy, which please tell me. You could be like, it's wrong.
Yeah.
But Black Adam made a few $1 million. All right. Now, Black Adam is
that what we're getting into? Are we getting into movies now? Because I'm all in.
I'm in. We're getting into brand. So The Rock's brand drew in. Now, what I'll say is poor quality will lead to the lack of longevity.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean you won't sell. And The Rock, as popular as he is, made a poor movie, a poor quality movie, but it still made enough money based on his brand's draw. To equate that to a writer who might not have quality books, if their brand is marketed properly, people are going to still connect to who they are and give their book at least a chance. Will that book have longevity? No. But if they believe in that brand and another book comes out, they might say to themselves, well, they're learning. This is their second book. I believe in what they're saying. So maybe that'll last only so long. You have to eventually get good at what you're doing. But I don't believe lack of quality will fault your sales, because how do they know it's bad?
I
Can I-
agree. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead,
No,
Jody.
please, Don. Well, let me just ask the question then. Can you define quality for me, and then
Mm.
whatever Don has to say, because that would be
Quality
my
is
big question.
opinion-based research. So I might not like apples for whatever reason, and Dawn might love apples for whatever reason. And that's based on my branding of my relationship against apples, meaning however apples affected me growing up was marketed to me, and now I have a brand relationship with apples. So it could be anything you want in the world. So quality wise is a moot point, right? Because it's just,
Yeah.
well, I like crap. Like some people are like, I love erotica, but then other people are like, this is trash. But it could be like the most amazing erotica, you know?
If you
So
like erotica.
Yeah.
even if you don't like erotica,
Right. So
you
no-
might like the descriptions. Like,
So
wow, you know, like,
I'm gonna agree with you in the, you know, yeah, if something is great branding and it's got a great brand message and it's got a, first of all, if something has a, and we're specifically talking in, the topic was about self-published authors.
yeah. So we're
Right.
talking about authors as a
So
brand.
we're talking about
not their
authors as a
book.
brand and them being self-published, right? Because that was the original question was,
Correct.
do we feel, and that when speaking on that topic, my comment of if it's not good, it's not going to sell to people outside of the that person's
Sphere.
sphere, their inner circle, right? And you're 100% right, Tom. If the marketing is good and you've got a beautiful book cover and you're getting out there and you're signing books and you're creating a brand message around your book and you're creating a brand of yourself as an author around what you've put in that book, then yeah, it is going to sell. However, if we're talking about self-published authors that are hanging out on Amazon, as Jody put it, the noise,
Yeah.
right? And they're just sitting there waiting for somebody to buy their book. No, they're not going to sell. Right.
Well, yeah, you got to put effort and work into it.
You have to put effort in. And to be fair, again, we go back to the argument of people creating art. If you give a shit enough about your art, you're going to do whatever it takes to sell it. And then it should sell.
I would push back that I've been in the music industry for so long. That statement doesn't make sense because I know musicians.
I mean, I know musicians
their
as
music,
well, but we're talking about self-published authors.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. Artist mine is I'm the fucking best, but am I putting that effort in? No, I don't have time for that. I want to be a writer. I will just focus on writing, and that creates the cycle of inaction.
Yes.
Because they're like, I wish I had. You know what? I'll just focus on getting signed to a publisher, and then they're like, oh, I got to get an agent. Well, I'll just send it to an agent because I'm awesome. Not that they might think that, but they're not.
Yeah.
They have a bias. Like my work is good, right? So they're going to send it to agents, and no one's going to respond. Then this agent's stupid, or they don't understand, and they start getting jaded. And then that action leads to them going, I'll just post it on Amazon. And because my book is so good, it will sell itself. And then you turn into the person that has inaction. But that doesn't mean they don't have the desire to push their book to sell. They just don't have the tools to know what they need to do. They only believe my book is so good. If I leave it in the closet, it will sell itself. And that's not how it works.
That's not how it works. But that's not how it works with anything, right?
Exactly.
That's not how it works. Business, life, music, relationships. If you just are going to be like, well, I'm so awesome. I don't need to learn. I don't need to grow. I don't need to make myself better. Right? Like if that's what you think, I'm sorry, but none of your endeavors are going to work out, even if they are really good.
I agree with you.
Don't you know people that are really, really talented, creative people, but they just don't do anything with it?
Yeah, Jody, tell us. No,
right. Yeah. Well, thank you for calling me creative. I'm really talented. All of those things. I definitely appreciate it.
Well, I did a shout out of you on another podcast. I was a guest, and they said, "Who's an independent author?" And I was like, "Oh, there's this guy Jody. He's really interactive with the community." I shouted you out because of your involvement and your passion. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. I do want to add too to the conversation. So I advertise. I do spend money on advertising, and I target people who should be interested in the kind of work that I'm writing. and I send those ads through Facebook. And what I find is fascinating about advertising is even when you're doing all of the work, figuring out what motivates people to buy the book is really strange. Facebook tells me that it knows the kind of people who take buying actions, and so they land on my sales page, and I'm trying to give them the best representation and tagline of what my book is. And I still haven't dialed it in. I cannot figure out what makes a person go like, ooh, I have to have that. And I think that's really difficult. And I think that there are a lot of self-published authors, especially, but I think this happens analogous in the traditional publishing world, that sometimes the publisher wants to publish the book because they see that it's great, but they have no clue how to find the audience and activate the audience. That is a huge challenge. And being able to hang in there sometimes is financially impossible. That's something I'm staring in the face. Is like, I've got about a year left. If I spend it what I'm spending right now and it doesn't catch and I can't figure it out, time just runs out. And then what do you do?
It sounds like you're crossing the your definitions or your terms. And if I may, connecting with an audience has nothing to do with sales. And sales has nothing to do with connecting with an audience. Because if you're talking about product sales, that's a numbers game that will fizzle out on itself and you'll be wasting your money on marketing and ads. But if you focus on brand development, brand is what you stand for. It has nothing to do with your book. It has to do with you and who you are. For example, Harry Potter has a huge following, but now because of J.K. Rowling and all her comments, it's diminishing her book.
Her brand.
Her
whole brand is in the toilet.
Yeah, her brand, as big as it is now tarnishing the brand of Harry Potter. So when a publishing company is trying to figure out what is the audience connection, it's like, how do I promote this author? But if it's just, how do I get sales? You're not going to connect with an audience. If an ad is just buy this book, but they don't know anything about you, then why are they going to click on buy this book? Unless that book specifically is pushing an agenda to fill a solution. Meaning I have a problem and I've been looking up how to, how do I get my knees to stop hurting? And then all of a sudden your book pops up about how to fix your knees. It just so happens it's a solution to my problem. So I look into it. Does it sound like it'll fix my solution? Yes or no? I'll buy it or I won't buy it. But you're not creating longevity.
I don't disagree with you. And you and I have actually had this conversation on stage, off stage, on air, off air. You've been on my show. We come back to this conversation because I do agree with you. And I also think that you're looking at it almost in binary terms. I don't see it as binary. I'm spending money to put my brand in front of them. So that's why I'm not crossing anything up here. I'm saying I get a certain dollar amount to put my brand in front of them and hope that my brand gets them to push buy. Okay. So like this right here is an intentional brand choice. There's a person smoking a cigarette.
What does your ad say? Does it say buy me? Does it say click here to get the book? Does it say
some of it does, but you have to scroll.
That's not brand marketing.
Wait a sec. Okay. You have to scroll a long way to get to buy me. So the first page says new hard-boiled detective fiction with a splash of magic. Okay, it's got a certain graphic that I picked. You'll hear. Well, I'm a novelist first, man. So like, you have to have all these things layered. I'm not getting someone to buy my memoir. I'm getting someone to buy my novel. So it has to be
just one novel.
No, actually, I'm selling 4 is the package. But
all right, so your ad is telling people to buy your book.
Yes, but wait. But
what about you?
There's more to it. So I think that part of the brand is when you land on that first page, why do you keep scrolling?
Well, it depends. If you're going with brand of the book only, then the book they decide to follow the brand down the rabbit hole, your next book has to be the same book, or at least very close to it. If you focus on the brand of you as an author, you would never talk about your book in the beginning. You would talk about the process of your book and the stories that excite you, and people would connect.
Like you're talking about nonfiction versus fiction. I think
not
that's
at all.
part of the issue that we're dealing with.
I'm telling you how marketing 101 works with agents.
1,000% that J.K. Rowling did not sell The Philosopher's Stone based on her story. Her story came out as a result of the fact that people fell fucking bonkers for that book.
I would disagree with you on that because
you don't have to. You can actually.
I can tell you what happened.
So can I.
I would like very much to weigh in here. Okay.
Yeah,
boys, stop fighting. So I definitely think that it is easier what Tom is talking about, and the branding of the author over the content of the book is easier with nonfiction. I believe, my opinion is, it is easier as a nonfiction writer. It is easier because I am solving a problem, or I am, giving you easy recipes. I am giving you, you're learning something from my works, right? Or from works like mine. A novelist is selling entertainment, right? You're selling entertainment, and you're trying to tap into who's the audience that wants my type of entertainment, right? So if I'm going to the movies and I love, comic book movies, I'm going to be, people are going to tag me. Marketing is going to come to me for all comic book movies and all my, my likes and what I do online, what I pay money for. The powers that be, the Google and the Facebook, they're all tracking my movements, and they're tracking my watch cycles and all that sort of thing. If I'm sharing memes of Captain America's ass, they know that that's what's happening, right? So then I'm targeted for, if you're writing something that falls into that, then Google marketing and Facebook marketing is going to find me, and that's going to pop up for me and say, hey, here's something that you might like because it hits all your buttons.
Yeah.
Right?
What is it doing, Dawn?
It's finding,
solving your problem and creating a solution for your problem, which is you are trying to find comic book related entertainment. So the solution is give you the comic book entertainment.
Correct. But the consumer doesn't think of, when it comes to nonfiction or entertainment, the consumer does not think of it as it's a problem, right? So
Correct,
you are right
marketing,
that this type of entertainment is filling a need, not solving a problem. I'm wanting entertainment, and so I'm looking for it. And maybe Jody's book is what I'm looking for. It's something that spikes my interest. The thing I'm hearing in this conversation is Jody saying, I want to be able to brand my book for its content.
Yeah.
And have people fall in love with the content, and then me. And I'm hearing Tom say they need to fall in love with you first and then your content. But I see both sides of this argument, and I really think that I think it can be done either. Listen, again, let's talk about Stephen King. People didn't know who Stephen King was until Stephen King wrote fancy ass books, and people fell in love with his books, and they were like, Stephen King's a genius after his books were written.
Again, that's not necessarily true, because he didn't sell his first book, Carrie, for a long time. He began selling smaller implants into magazines through networking opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, he got pushed aside so many times. He had a little nail on his wall that turned into one of those nails you put into the train tracks, and it was filled with rejections.
Yep.
So he started building relationships within the writing industry and magazines, and they started buying his little pieces of stories. And
but did people buy them because Stephen King wrote them, or did people buy them because of the content?
At first, they bought the magazines because the magazine's brand was solving a problem, which was, we're going to fill this magazine with things that you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're talking about, Dawn, you're combining two philosophies in marketing. There's the avatar marketing, which is, I'm going to market to an avatar.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's, well, what does the avatar think? It doesn't matter what the avatar thinks when we're talking about marketing as a brand. Jody is 100% correct if he's trying to think like I am a reader. But as an author, he can't think, well, he shouldn't think like a reader. He should think like a business to create longevity, right? A reader is like, I really would love a thriller. So I'm just going to see what thrillers are new, because they're looking for thrillers, right? And they're just going to randomly find a cover. And if the cover hits them or strikes them, if the title strikes them, they're going to be like, great. But if you market towards that random sporadic action, you're not creating longevity. You're supposed to be trying to create an emotional connection where people are willing to listen to you.
Yeah.
So you have influence, right? Stephen King has influence, not because he wrote Carrie, but because he started getting involved with the industry that he was passionate about.
That's the key. That's the key. Getting involved.
Like, if he just wrote books, he wouldn't be huge. But if people like, well, R.R. Martin wrote the Game of Thrones. No, he wrote sci-fi. He wrote television before he was famous. He was in the industry. If you think of Stanley, Stan Lee from
Stanley.
Marvel, he
Yeah.
started as a guy who delivered mail, and then they hired him, and he got into the industry. He built his name, and what did he do to make Marvel big? Marvel's Corner. He got up and said Excelsior, and he would talk, he would answer the letters and got the community involved. And now Marvel was not about comic books. It was about we are together. We are united. You, the fans, and us. We're not separated by the book. I'm gonna open this world up to you. So people connected with Stan Lee because Excelsior, and but they weren't like I'm into the X-Men. That was a residual of the emotional connection to the brand. Some people did like X-Men. But again, readers are going to like what they like. But if you're creating longevity, and why DC changed their entire process is because of the Stan Lee method. Stan Lee didn't even write scripts. He said, this is the general idea, draw the pictures. Then he would get the panels, and then he would just think of things to say. And that's how they were able to pop out, because he knew it had nothing to do. In fact, there's a funny story. I know I'm rambling, but there's a really funny story. Stan Lee talks about DC kept following Marvel, so Stan Lee kept changing Marvel. And one of the big things was DC was like, oh, I think Marvel's like, they're putting more bubbles, more talking bubbles. So DC started doing that. So Marvel just started doing more just panels with less bubbles. So then they're like, oh, we'll just do that. And then like, maybe it's the covers. So then they started styling their covers like Marvel, but it had nothing to do with the books. It was all about Stan Lee's connection. And you could think of anybody, anyone you support. Think of any person you have an affection towards. If they do something, why? Why is it them? It's not just, well, Brad Pitt's hot.
I mean, that's true.
He may be hot, but it's not just Brad Pitt. And if it is Brad Pitt's hot, you got to look at the avatar's brain. What makes you find Brad Pitt hot or like style brands attractive and makes you get drawn to that? Why are kids drawn to wizards who get taken out of crappy situations and pulled into this magical world where they are the chosen one? That story has been written 1 billion times, and it's not Harry Potter, which is basically Lord of the Rings,
Which is basically Star Wars.
which is basically right? So why is Star Wars huge? Why is Harry Potter huge? Why is Lord of the Rings huge?
Well, the archetypes.
The
are-
archetypes.
The archetypes are,
That's right.
they're intrinsic to our own life experiences.
Correct.
And they're allegory to our own life experiences.
Branding.
We identify with those characters, and we identify with those characters because those authors are telling us their stories or their life experiences through these characters.
Yeah, and with Tolkien, he was telling stories to his children
Mhm,
to give his children power,
mhm.
to show them that they are capable of doing things, and people read that and related. But they didn't pick up his book, having never heard of Tolkien or anything like Lord of the Rings, because of the cover. In fact, the titles weren't even what he wanted. The publishing company did it. But it was the people were connecting so deeply to the story archetype, brand, my experience in life connected to this thing. And that's why there are some people go, you like Lord of the Rings? What are you, a nerd? It's stupid.
Yeah, I'm a fucking nerd.
Nerd, right? Yeah, we're nerds, right? Because of what, and that's why Harry Potter, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and other stories like that connected with people. And that's why the X-Men connected with people, because they're different and they're struggling, right? So you have to look deeper than I have a book.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying is like, you can look to sell a book to a reader, or you can create a career by allowing the readers to connect to you and what you have to say. And my last thought on that is Dawn, she has a brand that is corporate. She's a chef and she cooks and she has all these things, right? But her books are related to that brand. And she's solving the problem of, I want to learn how to cook like Dawn. She makes it look great. She shows these photos of food. She shows videos of cooking. She has a great personality. She talks about like the kitchen witch in your home, love through food, blah, 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 all these things. And then her books represent that message. She didn't write a cookbook. And then the next book she wrote was Lord of the Rings, but in space.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I've recently. Before I get into that, Jody, do you want to comment? Because we've been bantering for a while.
No, yeah, you're fine. I'm listening attentively. I know that I still have this sense of story as part of brand, and I don't think that I have to be able to articulate my brand in order to create a brand. And I think that people can fall onto my sales page and feel my brand through the things that I'm designing. There's a lot of intent there. So the only thing I guess I'm concerned about is being misunderstood in what I'm trying to say. But no, I mean, I agree with everything that Tom said. I love that idea.
So what I was going to say was, so yes, I'm traditionally published, but all of my projects, this is going to sound really awful. Okay. And so I apologize in advance if this sounds terrible, but these projects came to me. I didn't go looking for them. Obviously, I'm known as the kitchen witch. I'm big into witchcraft, meditation, manifestation techniques, visualization, and all of that. And these are all things that, for lack of a better term, and without getting way into my processes, I manifested the shit out of this stuff. Okay. I've been writing these things and going, this is going to get published, and then all of a sudden it kind of fell in my lap. And I was like, well, here's the opportunity I've been manifesting, and here it is. So I only just recently started working with a literary agent. And again, it was a situation that fell into my lap. She's someone I used to work with at Simon & Schuster. She went off on her own and she's like, let's work together. And I was like, great. I already know you. I already trust you. This is awesome. And I already started writing a book proposal for something I'm really passionate about that's not in my wheelhouse, right? It's not in my wheelhouse. It's not a kitchen witchery book. It's not a food book. It's not about whatever, like none of the things that you would check off and go, oh yeah, that's Dawn's brand. But I think it is because it's something I'm really passionate about. And it's things that I do every day. It's business skills I do every day. It's very much important to me. And I'm really, really passionate about it. And I started writing this book proposal and I sent it to her and she's like, slow down. She's like, you have literally just spent a decade becoming who you are.
Yep.
Now is not the time to diverge.
Correct.
Now is the time to dig in because in industry, you are considered an expert in your field.
Correct.
Get in that, dig into that, be that person until you absolutely cannot be that person anymore, and then write that book. And I was like, well, son of a, because I was so excited about it. And then we started talking about other projects and other things that I wanted to do. And so, again, I think as creatives, I have this idea and I want to do this thing and this first thing and the second thing I did was successful. And how about this? And we have to have people in our worlds, in our spheres that can say, no, slow down. And I think, and I know that we're getting short on time, but I think one of the things that is really important is, especially as a writer, knowing what you don't know and being able to ask for help. Like Jody said in the beginning, having people in your sphere that do things really well and talk to them and bring them into your project if you can, and allow yourself the space to say, I have no idea how to do this. Let me find out. Let me ask for help. Let me learn from someone else's experiences. I think that's really, really important, especially when it comes to the marketing piece. If you're a writer and you just want to write, do it.
Yeah.
Write your freaking heart out and then find someone else to help you with the things that overwhelm you.
I really like one of the things that you said, Dawn. There's so few people who have been able to do it, but I think of Radiohead in music. They were able to completely effectively change their image from Pablo Honey to Kid A. I think that they lost as many fans as they gained trying to make that change. I think I saw Coldplay do a really similar thing. I don't know why I'm thinking music for this, but Stephen King actually did it in a really sneaky way as well. He's still considered the father of horror, the master of horror. But he hasn't written a true horror novel in ages. He writes literary fiction that's got a little bit of zaniness to it. But once you've established who you are, you get to start to grab a larger audience and pull more people into you. And that's an exciting thought. I think it's difficult even for me hearing you say it to think I've got another decade to go before I have that privilege. That's really tough because it's been a long haul already.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Anne Rice, she wrote erotica under a different name because
Mhm.
she was like, I don't know how this is going to affect my books, and then she wrote under Anne Rice, and then her sister did the same thing. So going back to that one person we were talking about, like sometimes it's okay. Like Dawn, if you want to write a professional how-to book, use a different pseudonym for now. And
Mhm.
Anne Rice eventually went back and was like, all right, make all the erotica books that I had under my name now, because she had created such a larger branch. And I have a friend who is a fitness expert for many years, and they came to him and said, we want you to write a book. He's like, I'm not a writer. And they're like, well, can you tell somebody what to write, and then they write it, and and they gave him $300,000 to write the book. Never wrote a book. He's like, it sold enough to sell, and then like occasionally I get royalties from it, but they want me to do another one, and it's been like 10 years and I don't want to do it. And he spent his life becoming the fitness person.
Right.
And he wanted to branch out. So what did he do? What's the next step? He went on to covers. So he's a fitness cover, and he was a model. What's the next step from being a model? Acting. So so he used small steps, and whatever came to him, he accepted because it came to him. He was earned it. But he didn't try to go do things outside of his wheelhouse until he was able to go, okay, I've established my expertise, just like
Mhm.
and he goes, now I can do movies, or he did talking first. He would go on a show as a talking head, and like on a Fox or a CNN or something like that. And that's really like the idea with authors too. It's like you could write whatever you want, but the problem is if you're an author, right? Like an R.R. Martin, he has multiple genres, right? Under the same name. He became the brand. And it just so happens he wrote these books, right? So his agent and publisher didn't have to say, slow down, because he was writing science fiction. He was working on television shows. He was doing this. He was doing that. And then he wrote a small little book called Game of Thrones, the first book of in Ice and Fire, right? Song of Ice and Fire. So how did he get to do that without getting that pushback? But then you look at Metallica, and they went from Ride the Lightning to the Black Album. That messed up their career. But after 4 years, people were like, no, we have a new fan base. And then they made Load, and they lost that. You could look at the record sales, $14 million in sales to $3 million in sales.
Right.
Right. So you got to be careful with your brand adjustments and what you decide to change or release. And that's the only reason I was saying to Jody earlier. It's like, look, if you focus on, look, my brand is my books, you're not focusing on what you stand for. And if you believe your books stand for what you believe, then when you start writing about horror and murder and all these things, are we supposed to assume that you believe in murder? No. Stephen King doesn't believe in it. He believes it made him money. Like, right? He's like a normal guy that, he has a funny story. He talks about he was walking around the woods and he had to take a crap when he was like 9 or whatever. And he was with his brother. And his brother's like, just crap. He's like, how am I going to wipe my head? And he's like, just use leaves. And he used poison ivy. But that's how he came up with Stand By Me. He was in the woods. He was crapping. He was wiping his butt. And he was like, imagine we found a dead body here. He was a kid. And that stayed with him. And then as he got older, right? But what is Stephen King's brand? Small towns, small groups, kids' stories, growing of age, not necessarily horror, but the unusual and the creepy.
Yeah.
And what's his consistency, right? It's that. Except for he'll throw out a Shawshank Redemption as a short story. He'll throw out a small book here or a small book there, and that's okay. Because no one pushes a Stephen King book by going, the cabin and the sea. No, they go Stephen King, Cabin and the Sea, because his brand is more important than the book. And but I like that your agent said that. They were like, hold your horse.
Yeah, no, it was one of the reasons I was like, I guess we should work together, because I need somebody to kind of like keep me in, kind of talk, because then I have a lot of crazy ideas, and I needed somebody to kind of like, knock me down a peg, to be quite honest, and someone that I trusted to say, this is a great idea, put it in the bank, we'll pull it out later. It is important. And I think, Tom, you hit on something really important. You've said quite a few times, longevity. And I don't necessarily know if writers understand longevity in terms of the creative process. Like Jody, you've said like how you've been working so hard and you have like a year left of like, can I survive? And, but writing is a business.
Mhm.
You are your business. You are your first and most valuable employee to do the work that needs to be done. And I think oftentimes people go, I've had enough. And it's just before the breakthrough is going to happen that people walk away from things because they get afraid or they get worried or they go, maybe it's not for me. Oh, maybe I made a mistake. But if you just held on for another week or another 2 weeks, or you just push through the next creative process, you would get there. And I know that's coming from a place of I've been very lucky to have the life I have and be able to do the things that I've been able to do. And maybe not everyone is able to. But I definitely work my ass off and I stick, like I had to fill out a questionnaire for a reality show that I was on, which was terrible long time ago. And I asked my husband, I was like, what would you say is my best quality? And he's like, ooh, tenacity. And I was like, okay, what would you say is my worst quality? And he's like, tenacity. And I was like, okay, yeah, okay, that's true. But you do have to keep going. Like, Jody, what's the next project you want to work on? While you're sitting here in this mindset of how am I going to get more people to buy this book? In business world, I say that's working in your business, not on your business. If your business is you as the writer and you're focusing on the daily aspects of selling your book, how are you also working on your writing instead of in your writing?
You know what? These are questions too that I hear. They're discussed so much in every podcast and all over the place. There are business books that I think prey on authors with these kind of things. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I'm saying I spent a year making The Reluctant Book Marketer because I was told that I needed to have a product and a brand to sell people. And when I got through a year living off of the successes that I'd had in the business world, air quotes, if you're listening, I don't even know if that's an option here, but I realized that was a year that I felt I had wasted because the thing I love to do is write books. And I would love if people would only know the books and I could disappear. I don't want to be Jody Sperling. If it so happens that more people will read my book because that name is on the book in big gold letters and that draws them in, I'm here to tell you a story that I think is going to change your life because I have, maybe they're radical beliefs, but I believe that underneath the entertainment inside of my books, there's a life lesson. I've had horrible experiences that I'm trying to transliterate into stories. And I think that those stories, I'm giving them to you as a gift. I'm putting everything I have into them and I'd like to disappear. I'd like to not be a brand. Maybe that's my own self-talking and maybe I'm sabotaging my journey by wanting that. But that really is what I want. I want you to love my stories. And if I write a bad story, I want you to hold me accountable for that. And hopefully I do better next time.
I talk about that in my self-help book, The Artist Brain versus the Business Brain. And, there is a way around that, Jody. You basically hire basically an avatar, a person to represent you, and you are the writer for that representation. So you could create a fake persona, which people do very often, Michael Bay is not a real person. That's a robot. So if you look at it that way, you still have to create a brand for longevity.
Right.
But if you're just happy having your book seen by people, just release them. I tell bands that are clients, I go, look, if you're working on selling albums and you're like, I want you just release the album because no one's going to buy it because you're not out there. You're not present. People don't know who you are. Then, people connected to Metallica, not because they recorded an album, because they were Metallica before they recorded the album. They had built such a following before an album that a husband and wife couple sold their house. Put a mortgage on their house, and they created Megaforce Records and signed them, and then went and got them to record it out. They didn't just find some people hanging out in a garage, walked past the house, and was like, that's going to change music. And they're like, we're going to bet our house on them. No, Metallica did the work, and they developed. But if you don't want to put that effort in to build a brand, you want to be more silent, stuff like that, I feel you have to earn that. But you can also go the route of, all right, I'm going to invest $30,000, $40,000 into marketing. And that's true. If you start a company and you don't want to do the work, you just want people to come into the company, you have to do what they do in the bars. Hey, you're pretty hot. Can I have your number? No. Hey, you're pretty hot. Can I have your number? No. Hey, you're pretty hot. Can I have your number? Yeah. Okay. Hey, you're hot, because you want to keep going. Because when you call that person, they might say, I didn't like the date, or they might not call you back. So you have to collect enough numbers so you can find the girl, right? Or a guy, or whatever. So you can do it, but it's going to cost a lot of money and time. And if you're doing, if I may, what is your marketing budget per month?
I have no marketing budget per month.
Well, what do you spend on average per month?
I'm spending $30 a day right now.
So $30 a day would be was that
times 30 days.
30 days, $600, $900. No,
it's a good amount of money.
That's $900. So $900 a month, right? Now you got to do your math. The rule of 10% in marketing. The rule of 10% is if you could get 1% of your audience, you're doing well, right? So you have to look at how many numbers are seeing your ad.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm tracking all that kind of stuff. So the other way to look at it is that I'm spending $900 a month and I'm making about $840. So I'm just under profitable, and so I lose $60 a month.
But there's a reason for that. Is because you're putting money into, hey, you're sexy. Can I have your number? And they're not connecting to a brand. It's just a potential. I have a client that sells like insoles, and they spend like 10 grand a month, and they make 15 grand a month.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That sounds great to me.
What is the difference, though? Is that $10,000 a month, right? They're seeing a higher number. People are becoming aware. 10% of those awareness become interested. 10% of those interested buy. And buying doesn't mean they purchase. It means they buy into the product's brand. And then that'll turn into sales. So the more people consistently see your brand, it can't be different people. It has to be the same people who consistently see your brand, the bigger the return will be at the end. But you're spending money on different people seeing your product every month. And the proof is in, they can only buy your book once.
I would like to just say something here, because Jody, throughout this conversation, we've had really great opinions and we've all gone back and forth. But 2 minutes ago, you expressed that your stories mean something to you. You expressed that you went through traumas in your life and there are life lessons in your stories. And, you would rather just fade into the background, but you know that if people read your stories, they're going to fall in love with them and they're going to change their lives too. And that there's a message there. In that minute that you were talking, I completely fell in love with you as a brand, right? Your stories, who you are, why you write, why you want people to read your stories. If you could get in front of other people, and yes, I know you have your own podcast and you do all this other stuff, but maybe the brand messaging is about you telling people why you write these stories in the first place. So people go, gee, I went through these horrible things. Maybe his stories will, maybe I will relate to his stories. And having that been said, and you saying, I really would rather be in the background, everybody except Tom would rather be in the background, right? Most of us are shy. Most of us are, like, look at me, don't look at me. Please, here's my work. Every time someone buys a book, I'm like, oh God, it's my heart. Please love me. Every single time. That authenticity is why people will buy your books.
Yeah.
That's why I want to buy your book now. And I don't read drama like
at all. She doesn't read.
I don't read. No, I'm completely illiterate. But I don't read murder mysteries. That's not my jam. But I would buy your book to support you even if I didn't read it.
I hear it as a killer intro. Because it's a murder mystery. Okay.
I'm just saying it's scary to show your heart publicly. It's
Yeah.
scary to be who you are authentically, especially when you're a creative person and you are expressing all of your vulnerability through your work. But that's what people resonate with.
Oh yeah.
That's who you are, and that's why people are going to buy your books. You know, like not to like get on a soapbox here, but like when Tom is screaming about branding and you are your brand, that's what he's talking about. You know, be you, because there is only one you. There's only one me. Thank God there's only one Tom. But, you know, I mean, that's why people are drawn to people. That's why people are drawn to people's works, because they resonate with them. They
And
speak
stickers.
to them. And stickers?
Yeah. Give as many stickers out as possible. People love stickers.
People love, apparently, stickers is the way to forget everything we just talked about. Spend 30,000 on stickers and just give them out to people. Just make it rain. Stickers.
To be fair, everything Dawn said was 1,000% accurate, but that does bring us to the end of the show. So I have to ask the end of the show question that I always do, and then we'll take it from there. So Jody, you get it first because Dawn was the last to speak. So Jody, the question is, what is one piece of advice you discovered about writing, either through someone else or yourself, that completely changed the way you approach the writing process?
God, that's a huge question.
Yes.
One piece of advice. The piece of advice that sticks with this is like a lame one, but it's true. My professor Margie Lucas talked about filtering in writing, and I would have never known that it even existed. But when your main character felt cold, you remove the reader from the experience because you see the person feeling cold. But if a chill gripped the person, then you feel chilled because you didn't use that word felt. So anytime you use a sensory word to describe a feeling, you remove the feeling from the reader. And that changed my writing forever. I'm very, very strict about not using feeling words.
Oh yeah, show don't tell. That's it. And the best way to say show versus tell. Show is what the character experiences. Tell is the perspective of the author.
Yeah.
So that's great advice. So I'm glad you shared that. Dawn, your turn. Do you want me to reread it again? I could do the voice.
Yeah.
What is one piece of advice you discovered about writing, either through someone else or yourself, that completely changed the way you approach the writing process, Brian? How's that book coming along? How's the protagonists?
So again, I'm a nonfiction writer.
That's fine. There's still a process.
Yeah. One piece of advice that I discovered during my process,
either or someone told you, like Jody said, someone had said something. It was like, oh, that's
well,
genius.
I mean, again,
no one said anything about me, but
this whole stay in my lane thing, that was a big piece of advice. But I think what I discovered about like something that I discovered is not to get overwhelmed by the process. Again, I'm someone that has anxiety. I suffer with that, and I've learned how to manage that. And I think often I can get overwhelmed. And for me, breaking things down into small bites is the best way to go. So even when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I go, okay, I have a project to work on. I have a deadline to meet. I have to get this done. I will block my time in 90-minute blocks. I will set a timer. I will turn off my phone. I will turn off all my alerts. I'll put on some nice music, I'll grab a cup of coffee, and I'll write for 90 minutes, knowing I just have 90 minutes, just get through this 90 minutes. And then I take a break. I take 5 minutes or 10 minutes, walk around the house, pet the cat, whatever it is. And then, do another 90 minutes if I can, right? So I think taking small bites, setting small attainable goals, in terms of getting things completed in time and not going down the rabbit hole of, I don't know if I can get it done in time, or what am I going to work on? Just pick a thing, do it for 90 minutes. If it sucks, you can go back to it later. but pick a thing, do it for 90 minutes and just do it, and then figure it out later.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, I can't do anything for more than 10 minutes without needing a nap, but
it's okay, Tom. It happens to a lot of guys.
Oh, I never. At my age, my champion days are over. And by champion days, I mean, I could run after a girl for a long time. Now I don't even think about it. No, that was great advice. Yeah, no, small blocks. That's definitely something we talk about on this show is time blocking. I'm famously pronounced to be doing that myself. I do hours. I do an hour writing one project, and I do an hour of something else, an hour of something else, an hour of something else, and that's how I'm able to work on 10 or 12 things each day, because it's not about finishing things. It's about working on things consistently.
Yeah.
Because it will finish. But if you attack something like, I got to finish this, then you get that anxiety and you get overwhelmed. And it's like, no, I just need to work for an hour. Wherever it takes me, it takes me. All right. With that said, though, let's do the Jody. How do people find you?
www.JodyJSperling.com.
Oh, excellent. And Sperling is Sperling for anyone listening on the audio. And Dawn.
You can find everything you need to know about me at cucinaaurora.com. CucinaaUrora.com.
And if anyone parla Italiano, you know that she's Italiano. She's a kick in the cucina, por favore, So anyone else? No? Succhi la molto grande dalle migas, por favore. No. All right. Bravo ragazzi, Don. All right. Donna, right? The bella donna. Okay. Now, am I the only one who speaks Italian? What's going on?
I don't speak a word of Italian. Isn't that terrible? It's awful.
I said a lot of nice things.
It's terrible.
You don't speak anything?
No,
not even
ciao.
Like ciao.
Maserati.
Manicotti.
Mozzarella.
What about the
lasagna? Lasagna.
All right, that's fair. Hey, Jody, do you speak any Chinese?
No, I don't. I don't speak any Chinese at all. Nothing. No Mandarin.
No man. Oh well. All right. Well, good. All right, let's do it. Let me do my final thoughts. So today, we went over a couple of things. We focused a lot on saturation of self-publishing, but that led to some really great conversational pieces on marketing and the difference between branding yourself versus branding your books. And I really love what Dawn had to say about using real-time example with her agent, saying, hey, hold on, because if you start pushing outside your brand too far, you could do a lot of Metallica damage. You could also do a lot of other damage. You got to stay within your lane until you've earned the right. Become an expert through showing. As writers, we like showing is stronger. So become an expert through showing. Let your social media, let your actions become the truth in what you stand for. In fact, for me, you know that I do speaking engagements to help educate others, and I do them for free because I stand by education should be free. And I give people the tools and skills to do what they need to do to be successful in their career. So become the truth you believe in, and that will be your brand. Who you are is what you represent, right? So with that said, thanks for sharing your time with me. And as always, you got to keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Love you. Bye.